You, Mr. Timothy.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the monthly work session of the Board of Education. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:21 on November 9th. Can we all please stand for the pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so first we'll take a look at the minutes and the agenda, and if there are any questions on either one.
Page 3 of the agenda, approve the following resolution. Just had a question on the side letter for the winter track.
Okay, wind track was not a sport that's in the contract. So we're adding it in, we do that through a side letter between the ERTA and the administration. I sign that, and the board approves it, and then it becomes, we can add it into the contract when we renegotiate the teacher's contract. But it gives authorization for us to pay for something that's not at this point in time included in the contract.
When you say in the contract though, that's what's been here before, years past. So it was taken out of the contract or it was not budgeted for? That's my question, I guess.
Yeah, I believe it's not worded in the contract as winter track. I can go back and look, but that would be the reason, is that it's not officially designated in the teacher's contract. And so in order to pay someone to do that, we need the board's approval.
Right.
So it's added in as a sport.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Then on page 4, number 2, the grant from the Ed Foundation, which is, I thank the Ed Foundation for all the work they do. It's a tremendous grant there, $10,645.65, 7 individual grants. I was wondering what they are, and if we could know that, because I think that, and the process, did people apply for them? How was that?
Yeah. I attended the meeting, the last meeting where they reviewed them. They have a very well-organized process that they use to, they send out an email, about 6 weeks. They ask for proposals. There's a form that teachers fill out. It gets approved by their principal, something that the district can support ongoing. And then it's submitted. I think they received 9 or 10 grant proposals, 2 of them, and, that's why Jackie and I share the responsibility of attending the meetings. 2 of them were things that we really can fund and should be funded as part of, sometimes teachers ask for things through the grant that they don't realize the district really should pay for. So 2 of those fell into that category. There were classroom supplies and materials that we felt were more appropriate for us to fund. The grant should really be something over and above and beyond that the district can fund in the budget, or something new and innovative. They have their, a guideline that they follow for that. So teachers, I would have to go back in my email, present the list to you. I can include it on Friday.
I have it. It was actually in the update. We have 7. We have 1 for Laura Clark, cultivating a love for reading at Center Avenue Library. Kate Rockcamp, magnetic fishing poles. There's another one for Nicole Mahalik Road. Although we didn't until now.
She asked for an oboe for 2 oboes for the band program, which we don't have.
So it took me a minute to realize that, because I'm thinking that she was putting BOE, like Board of Education, like, what is this? It took me a little while.
She also asked for tubas, for a tuba previously, so that is still under consideration, I believe, for the Ed Foundation, to see if she's still interested.
We have another one for Sheila Olson, Wacom I'm probably reading this wrong. Intuos graphic drawing tablets.
So she is the new art teacher who took, she's teaching the kind of technology art integrated classes this year. And she, very, very innovative. She asked for 30 of these tablets that are used with her technology program. I'm not familiar with them, but we did all pull it up and everyone looked at it. They're really to innovate her program and to allow all students to have the opportunity to do, I'm not sure if it's web design or certain type of graphic design in her class. So every student will get an individual tablet that they can use during those tech-related art classes. She also applied for another 3D printer, which was approved as well.
Yeah, that one's on here as well, the MakerBot replicator
Right.
and 3D printer. Then we have another one from Crystal Valentin, library, market space, and innovation.
Makerspace, so she does a lot of makerspace activities, so she's expanding that. She's increased the circulation as well as the participation in the library, and a lot of kids come up here during lunch and during study if they get a pass. But a lot of kids use the makerspace activities in the library, so that's really expanding on that program.
And the makerspace is what?
There are different types of kind of activities that they do. These are some of them, these kind of mosaic things, but a lot of them are really hands-on engineering types of things that they do, creating like, I'm not exactly sure, I can't name them off the top of my head, but like not a Rubik's Cube, but a Rube Goldberg, you know,
Yeah.
kind of a,
Goldberg, yeah.
yeah. Different things for kids to do to explore kind of STEM or STEAM activities, and using the library for that purpose, to have a place for kids to really engage with one another socially as well as, hands-on learning experiences.
Yeah, and we have one more, Marissa Diamond, super seat sacks for students.
Those are things that you put on the chair for kids to put their materials and books in. They ordered them for the entire second grade. Was that something we could have provided? But the Ed Foundation was, I think that was $400. They were kind enough to fund that.
Yeah, wonderful stuff, for sure.
Wonderful, wonderful,
Yeah, so
innovative.
there are still a few grants that missed the deadline that they are considering and reviewing, and we're asking for I believe a little bit more information. So the next meeting is November 29th, which I will be at, and they're hoping to continue to fund. They also started a fund in honor of Richard Marr, so they're going to be developing a scholarship for Richard Marr here at the high school, as well as fund some unique projects in his honor and his memory.
Is that like a 501c3 or something like that?
Yes,
And
they are.
Is it managed by the school at all, or is it
No.
completely
It's
separated?
a separate 501c3 foundation. That's
Okay.
their status.
Okay,
And they donate a few years ago, and with Jackie's help, fine-tuned the process of how the monies were donated. You receive a check, it goes into an account, and then teachers place the orders with purchase orders for the materials that they want. In the past, long time ago, they would go out and buy the things and then get reimbursed, and that was not the best way to do it. So Jackie really developed, I think James Robinson started it, and then Jackie fine-tuned the process for teachers being able to purchase the materials through the district with the funds being donated directly into, what account, Jackie?
It's in the student activity account.
who's the chairman? Or in
They have directors, so right now, Kristen Octera is the head of the Ed Foundation, and then all of the members are called directors. I'm not a member, I just visit.
Yeah.
Let me see, so a number of people, Mrs. Bruzo, Mrs. O'Moore, Mr. Caracciolo, I don't want to be rude by forgetting anybody's name, but there's about, I think, 10 or 12 people that are on the Ed Foundation.
Okay.
They meet monthly on the last Monday of every month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the minutes or the agenda?
Nope.
Okay, if not, let's go down to our items for discussion. First one is Nassau County School Bus Stop on Safety Program.
That's a mouthful. So this is a program that Nassau County kind of spearheaded to administer a countywide school bus safety program with school districts and other municipalities, which install, operate, and maintain cameras on the stop arms. So anytime the bus stops and the arm goes out and the flashing lights are on, the camera is activated. There's no school district or driver interaction at all. This is done completely with the vendor that was awarded the contract or an extensive RFP process. Once the cameras are operational, we get like a 60-day warning period in the district. So they're operational. If anybody violates, makes a violation, passes the bus, they get a warning notice for the first 60 days. So they're aware that this is going on. After that, they start to get tickets directly to their home, to the registered owner of the vehicle, just like they do with red lights. We do not get any funds, but we don't lay out any funds. So the fines that they collect are used to administer the program. They're the ones that take care of the cameras, they do the installation, they do the whole thing. The only thing we need to do as a school district is to enter into an intermunicipal agreement, allow them authorization to put the cameras and the cameras onto the buses, and that's it. That's all we do. You know, then we don't really gain anything except that we hope that it will deter some of the drivers from driving so quickly on the streets. They did say that they do find that areas that have the cameras on the buses, they have seen a significant decrease
That's great.
in the way that
Some
people are
county
driving.
just ruled it out. I don't know if you saw, there were a couple of articles where people were surprised by, that it exists. So, I know that it's definitely enhanced safety for our students.
I
Now,
think
if
Jimmy would be very happy.
there's God forbid an incident, do we have access to the footage? Like, God forbid something happens or there's an accident, can we as a district access the footage on our bus? Or-
It's a good question.
That's a good question.
That's a really good question. I don't know if we have
Thinking about
access,
that.
but we might be able to ask them. You mean, so if there's maybe a
Right, God
camera.
forbid there's an
plus-
accident and, you
Yeah,
know,
I can certainly ask that.
I'm sure that's why it's there, is in the event something happens, there's an element of proof.
well, yeah, it's like a red light camera there, it's,
They're
It's
definitely
definitely-
taking photos. They're
Correct.
definitely taking, like they do with the red light.
And if you've
All
ever,
received one of
ever-
them.
right, if you've ever gotten a red light.
yes.
There's a little
I
video.
have, you can actually
We
go
do.
on and you can see the video of yourself going through the red
Or
light.
your husband.
Right,
Or your
exactly.
daughter.
So,
It wasn't me.
Not that I would ever do that, but, yeah. So I imagine it would probably be a similar.
Right.
Yeah. They will have video clips, but whether or not, we could I can't imagine we couldn't ask, but I wouldn't want to suggest.
Yeah, just out of
we're not
curiosity.
asking.
Good question.
So, they're hoping to begin rolling this out in January, depending on how quick everybody gets into the agreements with them. There will be like a panic alarm that will also be installed. Right now, they have not kind of finished rolling that piece of the project out, but in the future, they're gonna have an alarm that could be pressed, should there be some concerns. But that isn't totally rolled out yet, and they didn't have a lot of information on it, but they do want to roll out the cameras in January is what they're hoping, depending on.
Is there signage on the bus as well? So it's like kind of as an additional deterrent?
I don't think so. I think the deterrent is your ticket in the mail.
This is just a sample of one that we received that's similar to,
Yeah.
but this is not the vendor. I mean, if anybody wants to take a look at it. It's not the vendor that contracted with Nassau County, but we just happened to receive that.
Now, for buses that we contract, because we also contract buses, we don't just have our in-district buses. So buses where we have vendors doing our routes for us, we could also have this done with them. It would need an intermunicipal agreement where we would sign, and Nassau County would sign, and the vendor would sign. So that they would have the cameras on the buses that they use for our routes. So,
Zero cost to the
zero cost,
No.
zero cost.
safety to our students.
Safety to our students,
Yeah. It's a
safety
no-brainer.
to our residents, yeah,
No brainer.
Yeah, great.
it's a win-win.
And Jimmy was very excited when this became a law,
Imagine.
I guess it was about 2 years ago. He brought the articles to us,
I
so I
remember when
know
he
he
brought
would
that,
be
yeah.
very, very excited
He'll
to
be
have that
thrilled.
on the bus.
We like to keep Jimmy happy.
He lives it every day.
Yes,
and
he
knows how
does.
many people pass by the bus when it stopped.
So many.
Yeah, it's awful, especially on Ocean Avenue.
Okay, that's great.
Good, that's great.
Plan for learning
Next
loss?
item, yep, plan for learning loss.
So as you know, we received monies from the federal government. We received 3 different grants that we allocated in various different ways, and a certain percentage of that money must be spent on programs to address learning loss. We had asked our principals we did use some of those monies over the summer, where we had summer programs that were not as well attended as one would like, but it is the summer, and it was a rough year for everyone, and we had difficulty getting teachers to teach over the summer, and also, students were selected, and those that were selected and chose to attend attendance was closely monitored along with our summer school programs, and they were effective. And so we asked our principals for this year what they would recommend, how they would see us addressing those needs in their buildings. Basically, the programs should address children who have lost and not made appropriate gains academically, as well as enrichment type programs that would help to reconnect students socially and emotionally to our schools, to their peers, to reconnect and re-engage students. So we did get a number of recommendations. Again, interest in teaching those programs, the before and after school models was not overwhelming. And we really talked a lot about whether or not that's the best way to address that for our students. Of course, enrichment activities are very different, but remedial activities before and after schools, it's a long day for kids. And then they go home and have homework. And if they have to stay after school for a program or come before school for a program, there's also contractual issues because our teachers are here before school in the elementary school for extra help and meetings. And so it would be difficult to run programs before school. So we waited until after the first administration of our district-wide assessments was done. We're in the middle of having our data meetings, but we heard from our principals and from our teachers through our union president that there were some particular areas in our elementary schools that were struggling. And so we were looking at what's called a class size reduction model. This was a grant that was, I'm dating myself, that was around quite a while ago. We did receive grant monies for this, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you reduce class size and open other classes, because we don't have the room for that, and that's the next topic, or one of the topics on our work session tonight. But to provide additional supports to reduce group sizes. So we did identify 2 grades, coincidentally, both grades in both schools. We have very large kindergartens this year, and many of the students did not attend preschool. And so our kindergartners are not achieving at the same typical levels that they generally are. And we've been really increasing our focus on our upper grade students because we want to make sure that before they come into middle school, they have really solid academic skills, because it's just so much more difficult to remediate students when they're up here, because the workload, the content load is so much greater, even in 7th grade. And if kids are not coming up solidly competent in their basic skills, they really do struggle. They're behind the eight ball for the rest of their time. So we're looking at, for this year only, targeting those two grades because it's very specific to the students that are in those classes who have those needs. And, you know, the idea of hiring additional support staff really creates some unique challenges during the school day because our schools, our elementary schools are literally bursting at the seams. There is just no space for us to conduct small group instruction. The teachers, the principals are very creative, using every nook and cranny, every space, the art room is only used 2.5 days because our art teacher spends 2.5 days in each building. And so the alternate days that the art teacher is not in one building, those spaces are going to be used. So space really kind of, we would love to add, and some districts have used their funds this way to really reduce kindergarten class size. Research shows that when you go below instruction or the quality of what the instruction that children receive doesn't really change until class size goes below 15, because that's when teachers start to teach differently when their classes are that size. We just don't have extra rooms to open and reduce our kindergarten size classes. Plus, it would be a 1-year deal, and therefore we wouldn't really want to spend money on outfitting additional kindergarten classes. So the idea would be, we looked at two very different models, one in Center and one in Rain, because they're different populations. They have different students. One has ENL students, and one has special education, houses our special education programs. So the models differ a little bit, but we are looking at hiring additional staff for this year only that would be able to address those needs in both of those buildings by working with small groups, pulling out and identify groups of kids. So both kindergarten classes, for instance, in Center Avenue would be reduced for some core instruction every day, and those kids could be pulled out. That teacher would then become the support teacher, but teaching whatever it is that those kids, not necessarily the kids that have remedial needs, those kids might stay in their classroom and just the class size would be reduced, and then the additional teacher would work with a different group of students that would become a steady group that she would see, and a similar model in 6th grade. So our principals were meeting with their teachers to discuss how they would see this working and get their input on how best to design these models. But we really wanted to target the populations that were in greatest need of support, and that kind of missed out the most in terms of COVID. So that really is the main plan that we're looking at. This was just meetings we had last week. The principals now going back to discuss with their teachers the best way that they would see this working as a team. And then we will regroup to post for the positions. It would also involve at Rain increasing the co-teacher in the special education classrooms, increasing the time that they are in the class, because those classes are in greater need on those grades based on feedback from the principal and Mr. Healy. And so the models would look slightly different in each of the classes, in each of the buildings. And then we're looking at some enrichment programs. I'm going to let Mr. DiTomaso speak about those.
Sure. So in the elementary schools, we want to have some enrichment programs for the students, both for academic, as Ms. Ruiz mentioned, and for SEL purposes. We want to try to create equitability between the two buildings. One example would be like an intramural basketball program. I know some of the physical education teachers now have they have walks and they have intramural programs, and we're trying to come up with a system where that those programs can be a bit more equitable. We're also offering different types of programs for academics, and all types of activities, including gardening and different types of things to keep our students engaged, and also and to help them make those essential connections that they may have lost due to COVID. In the high school, a bit different. High school, we're taking a look also at students who need a connection to the school as well as academic interventions. We really need to use the data which we just received from the NWEA for the middle school report cards next week, so we're going to take a look at those. And those will really drive the type of programs that we're going to provide. In speaking with the principal, we're thinking in January that we would have enough data to launch programs for both types for those students who may be disengaged, to try to engage them in an alternate type of program, and also academic interventions based on their report card scores and what we're getting in terms of the data from testing. So we really want to try to bolster all our students K through 12 with these grant funds to just really make sure that we could, chip away at that learning loss gap that may have been there. And we realized that, SEL and academics, there is a connection, so we thought it would be best to, offer programs involved.
Is it a 1-year plan?
Well, the monies are available to us for 2 years. I believe we have to spend most of this money within 2 years. And so we don't want to create a 2-year program. We really want this to be tailored to where the need is.
Right.
And so for right now, principals identified that kindergarten and 6th grade in both buildings would benefit from this. And of course, we have individual data. We just had our literacy data meeting the day before yesterday. And we really look at not only the grades and how they're doing, but we look at individual students all the way down to how specific students are doing. And so that's really what you want this to be about, is targeting the students and the student populations who need that support. And so that could change next year. It
Right.
could look very differently because we hope we're moving towards more normalcy and re-engaging. And of course, it's a good time to try out a few enrichment type activities to see if then we have the ability to either introduce some new clubs or to, sometimes kids lose interest in certain things that we have been running and there's not great participation. So that's why we do collect attendance data to see what are kids interested in. We also collect data through guidance as to what students are participating in. And we really want all of our kids to be engaged in some sort of extracurricular activity. So we try to match those two things up and find student interest so that every student has something that they're connected to in our schools. And, the elementaries have been asking for different clubs through the years. We've added quite a few clubs. I think every year in the last 5-6 years, we've added clubs, and we should continue to enrich and increase our extracurricular activities, but also phase out some of the ones that are no longer popular and there's just no interest in running, or they're dated in terms of their approach. And so, this is a good way to kind of try out some of these things that maybe could become part of the budget moving forward. So, any questions? Yes, keep going. So that really led to this this conversation that we've almost not been avoiding, but in a way avoiding because of our district-wide space needs. We have increased at the elementary schools over the years the number of support staff that has been sorely needed. When I came here, we did not have math AIS support teachers. We didn't have enough reading teachers. We've moved into some different models while maintaining some of our teacher assistants. We've added a lot of reading support. We've added math AIS support. We are really bursting at the seams. A lot of times these providers push in and sometimes that works. This year that's really difficult because we have to maintain the 3 feet of physical distance in our classrooms. And so adding more personnel into a classroom isn't always the best way, even during non-COVID times. Certain kids just learn better in a quieter space. The teacher can have her own setup, her own materials, and we really are very limited in the available space, especially after adding our pre-K classes this year. We've added 2 pre-K classes. They fit nicely. The principals found space for them, but at the disservice of other programs that were using those spaces. We have people that are on carts that are moving around, not finding a particular space when there's the PT teacher comes or the OT teacher comes. We have group working in the hallway, which is not a violation of the fire code, but it's not the best learning space to be in. And I think that the board and the district needs to look at long-term what our space needs are going to be. I will be honest, there are school districts that go to art and music on a cart. As you can imagine, those are not really, I would not recommend that be, unless that's the last alternative that we have after we've explored other options, because it really compromises an art or music program when the art teacher does not have the materials and the setup and the kiln and all of the wonderful spaces that we've invested in, especially we've just updated the art room. And the quality of an art program is definitely going to suffer at an elementary school if an art teacher has to push around a cart with her materials, and the same thing for the music teacher, carrying instruments around, carrying a portable electric piano, being in classrooms. Teachers are displaced, they can't work on their prep in their classroom because the prep is pushed into the classroom. So we're very short on space in the elementary schools. And up here, we discussed the space issues quite a bit during the facilities committee in preparation for the bond. Unfortunately, those things got taken off the table. I mean, to do an extension on a building is a huge, huge expense to create a new wing. I mean, this district did that previously at Center Avenue. It was needed at the time, but Center Avenue is going to be 100 years old. I think in 2 or 3 years. We'll shortly start planning for the centennial of Center Avenue. But we really wanted to start the conversation about the possibility of either looking forward and renting space somewhere in the community, or there will be a need for portable classrooms, which is a little bit more problematic because there is not really a space at Center Avenue, and Jackie, I'll let her speak more to this in a minute.
Do we have to rent?
Hmm?
Do we have to rent? Could you purchase? Could you
Purchase a building or?
purchase another property or
Yes,
give the
whatever,
district
right,
another asset
right.
as
There
opposed
are
to a
various
liability?
different options we could consider. I mean, we would not pursue any of these options, of course, without the approval of the board. A lot of thought has to go into this.
Mhm.
We did during the bond facilities committee, we looked at the house that was on Center Avenue, the one that looked like the Munsters house that they tore down. We did go there. We went with our architect to consider that for central office, moving central office out of the high school. But it was too expensive and it was just not possible, not feasible to renovate in the parking space. Now there's 3 new houses there. The parking spaces were not adequate, but we've also, the previous board, there were some properties for rent, the previous banks. Now one of them is, I guess, a medical walk-in clinic of some type. But there's also, I have no idea what the plans are for St. Raymond's, but, that's something that I don't know if
Yeah,
it is
that
or
or
isn't
the
a
Rock, I
possibility.
mean,
Yeah,
right down the block.
right.
You know?
What's that?
Walking
The old
distance,
gym, the Rock, I mean, it's a big empty warehouse. That would be perfect
Yes,
space.
that went out of business, I noticed that.
Walking distance from here, that could be
Make a
central
call, see what
administration /
they're-
whatever. I mean,
And
that's,
we were thinking, if there is a lot of talk at the federal level for expanding the universal pre-kindergarten, if we get more funds
Right, you can house it
to
there.
open additional pre-K classes, we don't have the space to do that.
Right.
For instance, Lynbrook has an administrative building, and in that, they have their kindergarten and their pre-K classes, which
that
is,
would be,
I think they have pre-K, I'm not
Yeah,
sure. That's
it's
a great model.
tremendous, it's a great
good thing.
idea to have revenue generating opportunity like that. I mean, I'm not fully against renting, maybe in the beginning, but to be able to get an asset for the district that continues to go up in value, so to speak, I mean, it's a great idea.
So it's something
As long as
to,
it doesn't destroy the taxpayer, but, it's,
right, and there would be obviously costs associated with this, but the district is, in order to offer some of the really creative and wonderful, innovative programs that our students deserve, we need some space. Many districts are creating wellness centers, not only for their students, but for their faculty. We don't have spaces like that to innovate. We're just so tight.
we should move in parallel to not only looking for a good space, but putting together a committee to advertise and get the community involved in what a great idea this is, and how it might be a little bit of a tax implication in the beginning, but it could really turn into lowering your taxes in the long run. So there are ways to try and sell this and get people involved, and, if it's gonna better the community, I mean, to me, that's an easy sales pitch.
I would love to see what's going on in St. Raymond's.
Yeah, I mean,
That
it's
would
already
be a
set
home
up,
run.
it's already
You have
set
the
up.
classrooms
It's
already
That would be
set up.
Set up, that
I
would
mean,
be perfect.
They have a gym,
They have a
they have an
gym,
auditorium, and they have
Cafeteria.
Cafeteria.
Yeah.
That'll be a home run.
It's a very low ceiling in there, but yeah,
Yeah.
for little kids and stuff to run around, it's perfect, like,
Like pre-K and kindergarten center, it'd be
perfect.
So, portables are expensive. They, obviously, anything we do is going to be a cost associated.
And that takes up more space outside, so you're
We
not,
don't
you're not,
have a lot of
you're not, you're not
space.
solving anything.
We don't have a lot of
No,
properties.
there's not enough
It's very
real estate to
limited in terms
put
of
to another
what,
wing on
what it's
any of
going to
the
answer.
district buildings. There's not enough space.
And then it takes the central administration, like you've been wanting to do, and moves to another building. So now you're centrally located between all three schools.
Plus you have a profit center that it's a great idea and it solves a lot of problems. The question
agree.
is,
I like it.
That's the only thing.
Leasing a place, renting a place would be the best, because extending in one of the buildings only addresses that particular building.
Right.
Whereas we rent in St. Raymond's, you would take 2 classes or 3 classes of each building. So it frees up classrooms in St. frees up classrooms in Raymond's, and then it frees up classrooms here, because we would be leaving.
Right.
So
What's the
really, it's a
Sorry, go ahead.
win-win.
What's the story with St. Raymond's? Are they looking to rent something there? Are they looking to sell the property? How does that?
I had a conversation with Sister Roseanne at the very end of the school year and asked if there were plans, because we had heard some rumors about a charter school possibly, I think that was just a rumor.
Mhm.
I think that
Probably to get people interested.
would be difficult for the district if, charter schools are a big financial burden for districts when parents choose to. It's a choice, it's a choice that's available, but we currently do not have any families that attend charter schools. I think it would be difficult for us to have a charter school in our boundaries, but I think that was a rumor. And she said at this time, what she was aware of was that they had no plans to do anything other than keep the building. But we
So they
can
wanna
certainly reach out. I don't know if anybody else has heard anything.
Make them an offer they can't refuse. I mean, it would be a perfect space for what we need to expand and have all of.
It would be a home run. That would be a home run.
Dom, have you heard anything?
No, you're right on what you said, because that's the only thing I heard. Exactly, it. There's no plans right now.
We could help them make a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yes,
Church always
yes,
needs money.
everything is negotiable.
Yeah, they're not
We
gonna
could
sell.
help, we
No,
could
they're
help.
not
They'll
gonna sell
definitely
the
lease or
building.
rent. They're not gonna get rid of
And
it.
maybe we could just rent a part of it. I know that Sister Roseanne had said that they wanted to keep it for religious instruction, for different other community use that they
That's
use
all-
the facility
All
for.
after hours stuff though, so that wouldn't even affect us,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, CYO.
CYO,
and stuff
everything's
like
after
that.
hours.
Yeah.
Could be great for daycare and all that.
So I think,
Good
we
idea.
can certainly start the conversation and see with our attorneys, with our architect, what our options would be. And then report back to the board, and I think a committee would be a great idea if the board decided to go forward with exploring this. It would be a great idea to engage.
Yeah,
the
let's
community.
move in parallel and see what opportunities are presented to us, you had a good idea too about a potential warehouse space, because that's a blank space. If you have to.
I just thought of it, it's right down the block. That's
It's a
what-
great
yeah.
idea, and it's a very easy thing to do, to just put up a few walls where you need them. It's minimal work, obviously.
Beautiful bathrooms in there, I mean, that's.
I mean,
It's gonna be a wonderful administrative way.
Listen, whether it's the Rock or some of those other, I don't know, buildings, those warehouse buildings, I don't even know if they're occupied, quite honestly.
You
Yeah, I
just
don't
have
The
to
Berg building, the Berg building, is that? they
No,
tore
no,
down,
that's,
right?
that used to
That's
be,
gone.
that was,
That's gone.
yeah, that's
That's
gone.
gone, that's where the storage facility
Yeah.
is. I know we had talked about that years ago, purchasing that or renting that. But, you stated it has to meet the criteria for
That's what I was gonna
a
say.
school. There's
Yeah.
a lot
Very
of
difficult
requirements,
criteria.
physical requirements, and then if you only put administrative offices there, you don't get aid.
Right?
So you know,
Put the date.
there's a lot of different
Great.
caveats that you have to be aware of and research, because retrofitting an existing building, that's why Waynes is already approved as a school.
Right, right. I mean, that would be
That would be a
obviously
home
best case
run.
scenario, but
Yeah,
that would also be a renting scenario.
yeah, I mean, I know one of the Valley Streams, their office is in an office, their central office, and offices and business office is in an office building, a
Mhm.
small office building. And they have like 2 floors, it's small, it's a little cramped, but that's where their offices are, and I imagine they pay rent, for that. There's no students in that building, but, so they don't get any aid on anything that they do in that building there, so. But again, I don't know anything about renting versus purchasing and what the
Could you build
implications are.
up on top of Rame Avenue? I know you can't really move out anywhere, is
Well,
there?
the thing with doing that is that just helps rain. We still got Center Avenue that's
Yeah.
tight, we still got the high school that's tight, because we had thought about, expanding over here, the tech building. We're renting, space in St. Raymond's or somewhere else. It frees up space in every building, so each building has now gotten the additional
Yeah.
space, because all 3 buildings are bursting, not just one.
And again, that's, the new construction
It's
is very
huge.
expensive.
Yeah, it's
so
structurally,
expensive.
it's,
Millions
it'd
of
be a big
dollars.
money.
It would be
Well, even
beautiful.
if we have sky rights to go that high in a residential neighborhood, I don't know if you can go 3 stories.
Well,
Yeah,
Rame
there
did
might
have,
be, it's air rights.
Air rights,
So, yeah.
yeah,
The old
Rame
wing
did
was
have
3.
stories,
Yeah,
it did have.
Exactly,
yeah,
it was
before it burned down.
taller,
The old one
yeah,
was, yeah.
you're right. Food for thought, you
So
never know.
it's just something to
Get
start
a
a
grant for it,
conversation,
for the Rockaway Education Foundation.
so we can start thinking about it, getting some information, and reporting back, and, continue the conversation. Vaccination clinic, this is just something we received, about a month ago. There was some talk, the governor, I think I put it in the update, had put out information about schools serving as vaccination clinics. We have not heard anything else. I know, my organization had, expressed, some concerns in that regard. I think in Nassau County, there was recently a survey, I don't know the particulars of it, but it was reported, I believe, in Newsday that only one in 3 parents at this point are considering vaccinating their children. I do think that we have so many resources available in Nassau County, from drugstores to pediatricians' offices to so many different walk-in urgent care clinics that at this time, I don't feel it's anything that we need to take any action on. I also feel that parents want medical information about the vaccine that is best provided by a pediatrician. And so unless the board wanted otherwise, I think we would.
No, I agree.
Yeah, it seems like there's too much room for error with that, God forbid something happens and.
Yeah, there's plenty of places you can go. It's easily available now.
And there's been no more talk coming down, I just wanted to make you aware. I think our nurses are very busy, I saw on the news New York City is doing it. But I think there's just sufficient resources in our community for our families, and we haven't been asked. So unless we hear anything further, we'll can certainly post, but I think it's so well advertised that people know where to go to get vaccinated if they so choose.
Absolutely.
And policies.
Okay, so moving on to policies for adoption, we have 4 that will be going up next week. The first one is smoking, vaping, and other tobacco use on school premises. This is really just an update from NISBA, where we're going to be adding some language having to do with the burning of a lighted cigar, cigarette, pipe, or any other matter or substance abuse with a substance which contains tobacco, cannabis, or cannabinoid hemp. So if you look, I think you see, you will have the copy in red. Oh, wait, no, that's school safety.
Yeah, I only, because Mary sent them
Sent
home.
the other ones home.
Yeah, this one did not go home on Friday, so that's why I gave you a copy of this one.
So again, it's just looking to change the language to add those few items. And I believe we got that home as well. So do you have any questions on the smoking
Nope, they're all good.
policy? Okay.
Again, these were changes that are recommended by NISBA and our policy, their policy service that they offer, which is excellent. They send us quarterly updates of any changes in the law that should be reflected in our policies.
Okay, the next one is grading systems, and that is a local policy. And we actually were just making one change to this, and it was on the second page of the grading policy, where it refers to the first 2 marking periods of a full year course and the first marking period of a semester course, that students would receive a minimum grade of 50%, and that language is being changed to all marking periods for all courses. That 50 would be the lowest grade that a student can receive, because really there's no turning back at that point. It's very hard for them to try and get to where they need to be. So going below a 50, it really doesn't do them any service. So just looking to change that for all courses.
If a student were to receive a 25, they would never be able to recover in their yearly average, their course average at the end of the year. It could prevent them from passing if they improve. Just averaging the 4 quarters in, it would really harm a student. And, a student fails, they fail. There's really seems to be no value to support student motivation by giving kids a grade of a 20 or a 25 or something like that.
Does each school district do it differently, their grading systems? So we could decide however.
Yes, we can.
Does anybody have any questions about that one?
No, it makes sense.
Okay, and the next one was school safety plans and teams. And Lisa, we in our meeting had talked about what we were doing with this, because I had in my notes that we reviewed it in May and we were looking to discuss it in June and then adopt. So we were just looking to see what the plan was.
Right, and I think what I would feel more comfortable with is we reflected the changes in red in this policy, but I think it would be good to go back to the subcommittee for one more read before we adopt it.
Okay,
Because there were some changes based on the pandemic. There were some changes based on, which we had discussed many of them, but the committee hasn't reviewed it in its final form, and there were 2 NISBA updates that we incorporated. So I would feel better if the policy subcommittee gave it one more read, and then we could adopt it next month.
okay, so I'll just add
That's
that.
okay. But this is where we stand, this is the draft at this point. And the changes that we reflected after our conversation last week is in red.
Okay, perfect. So we'll look at that and then look to adopt it in December then.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Like that one. Okay, so then there'll only be 3 up for adoption, and the other one is transportation for non-public school students.
Do you want Jackie to speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely, thank you.
So we were removing the last, I think it's 2 sentences in the policy, because basically what that says is that when my office gets a transportation request and it does not meet the requirements as per the policy, that the resident could appeal to the Board of Education. And then you guys would have to respond that you were denying it because it doesn't follow the policy. It gives you the opportunity to allow it, but it's kind of, it really doesn't make any sense for that to be in there because the transportation policy is really approved by your residents and your voters. And to start,
And by regulation.
yeah, but the specifics in there, you could transport for less mileage, but usually that has an impact on your budget. And that's something that you don't change without voter approval. So to have a policy and then have an appeal place where a resident can come to you when they're not following the policy, doesn't make any sense, because you really shouldn't be violating a policy that impacts the budget. It just doesn't make any sense, those last sentences, so.
And we've had cause this past year to review the policy in a special case where we consulted with our attorneys. And I think they felt that was an anomaly.
Yeah,
That most
they didn't-
districts,
yeah.
it's not something you often see in other district policies.
Yeah, very unusual
That
to have
creates-
that, because it's a financial, transportation is a financial impact, and it's always, any change to the mileage guidelines has to be approved by proposition. So to have us,
Make exceptions.
making exceptions doesn't make any sense at all. You know, so I would recommend that we remove that. First of all, even without all of that, do you really want every person coming to you and appealing
Yeah.
when they don't
Right.
follow the guidelines? So it's not something that you really need to be addressing.
And again, our guidelines for private school transportation follow what the regulations require us to do, which is fair.
Right.
And appropriate.
Yes, absolutely.
Understood.
Perfect, thank you, Jackie.
Yep.
And that is what we have for adoption. And we have a lot more to review at our next meeting.
Some of them are not so onerous.
And that concludes, I think that's everything on there. Does anybody else have anything to add?
I did have one question. I guess I must have got my work session agenda in late. And that's, I'd asked, report out from the technology committee. We met with the technology committee. They met. I was trying to, from your notes that you sent to us, just to see, it was gonna be after we met, after they met, so our meeting is now. Did anything come about with that?
Well, we have various committees that we're running this year. We've been running our technology committee for several years now. The goal of this year's technology committee is to develop a plan to implement the technology benchmarks that were written and finalized when Mr. Rouse was here. We really, and to review them, because COVID really, in that, that silver lining to that COVID cloud was that we really advanced our technology skills, our students advanced them, our teachers advanced them. So to kind of review those benchmarks for appropriateness, to see if some of them have been accelerated, and then also to get input from the teachers as to how we go about making sure that they're implemented, because, there is an accountability factor of any benchmarking program that the district would implement, and also the plan, the committee will be tasked with developing the new technology plan that's required by the state of New York, that we have I think it's updated every 2 or 3 years. I think it's 3 years, the technology plan. So that will become a part of the technology committee moving forward. But I'm sure Mr. Fisk will provide an update. Today our mental health committee met, so we've really renewed our committee work this year. Last year we put most of it on pause. Some of it we did move forward with, the required committees, we did meet by Zoom, but now we're having committees meet, some by Zoom and some in person.
It'd be good to see what Mr. Fisk recommends that we either keep or move away from or anything like that, to get his professional input in that scenario.
Yeah, and again, the purpose of committees is for the teachers to really provide the feedback, because they're the ones on the front lines working in the classrooms, and so, it's a collaborative process, but I can certainly have Mr. Fisk come to a work session if you like, and report out on anything.
No, I think it's a terrific starting place. That's how I understood, because I saw the old PowerPoint and I said, this is a great way to get Mr. Fisk, okay, from the past, bring it now forward, and then have the teachers collaborate now for the future. So it's in perfect spot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
He's really put a lot of new things in place, especially this new, I believe it was in the update, this new feature Clever, which is a one-point sign-on for all of our programs. So it prevents us from having to roster with different passwords for different programs. Really, really makes it much easier. Claire can probably speak to Clever.
I haven't seen it yet. Actually, I spoke to my niece about it. She lives upstate. It sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, and we're going to have, actually for the K1, I know, Mrs. Maney had commented that the little kids really struggle with, the mouse and then going to laptops. And so we're going to be getting QR codes with cameras, and they will have a laminated QR code, and the kids, the K1 students will not have to sign in with their username and password. They'll just put their QR code, which will be, I guess you could keep them all on a ring by class, and they'll flash their QR code, and that will log them in. So they'll spend more time. Teachers have always commented, sometimes they use up so much class time on things that have no value or have limited value. Of course, they need to learn how to log in, but sometimes it takes a long time. So you want to really use the time to the best advantage. So these efficiencies have really moved, will move us forward and, do what they're supposed to do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to make a motion to move into an executive session to discuss personnel matter. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. DiMatteo, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kovias, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. Good night.